Cambodia TESOL Research Symposium, Writing a Research Paper Abstract. Let's begin. Today I'm going to go through a few guidelines for writing an abstract for your abstract submission in September this year. So you will need to write an abstract to register your paper for the Research Symposium at the Cambodia TESOL conference. So there are a few things you need to include in your abstract. The first one is the topic. What is the background to the context? So the place, the country, and basically the topic of the paper. You need to include that. Second, the focus. What was the focus of the research? What was the research about? Third, significance. Why is this focus important? How will students, educators, curriculum designers, policymakers benefit from this research? So that's important to include. Problem or gap. Why was this research done? What was the gap in the literature? So this is an important thing to think about when you do your literature review before you start writing your paper. You need to see if there is a gap in your country. Maybe the research was done in another country or in another context, and it wasn't done in your country or in your context. Maybe it was done with young learners, and you want to see what the effect would be with older learners or adult learners. So what problem needed to be addressed in your paper? What was missing in the current research? Methodology. What method was used to do the research? Was it quantitative, qualitative, or was it an action research paper? So quantitative, you're collecting data, you're doing a pre-test, a post-test, you have a control group. Qualitative, you're basically asking for opinions. You want to find out what people think about a particular teaching method or resource. Action research is observing something that's happening in the classroom, and you want to use this observation to affect a change in your school or in your curriculum or in some policy area in your country. So methodology is a very important part of your paper and should be included in your abstract. Results. What were the results of the research? What did you learn from this research? So that's very important. You may have learned something that you didn't expect, or you may have learned something that you did expect, that you wanted to test something and you got the answer you were expecting. So the results can be something expected or something unexpected. You may have got something you didn't expect, or you may have got what you did expect. Recommendations. So what are the recommendations or the benefits of these findings? A good abstract will answer all of these questions for the reader. Why you did the research, how you did the research, what was the gap, what did you find, and what is useful about this? Why are you writing this paper? How can you help other practitioners in the field with this paper? So that's very important to consider, and especially if you want to submit a paper for a journal. Okay, so let's look at a paper. This is a paper from a previous Cambodia TESOL or LEIA journal issue. So this is one that was accepted. So at the top you have the title Task-Based Language Teaching, or TBLT. Okay, so the first time you write this, you put it in brackets, in abbreviation, and then the next time you can just use TBLT. But the first time you write it, you must have the full abbreviation written out and capitalized for your abbreviation. Vietnamese case study using narrative frames to elicit teachers' beliefs. Okay, so this is your title. You have your two writers. This is a co-authored paper. So you have their first name and their family name. or if a family name comes first in your country, that's okay. You can put the family name first, followed by the given names. Where are the people from? So institution and country. So that's important to include. Next, the focus. What was the focus of the research? So this research was task-based language teaching, or TBLT. Again, you need to write that out the first time and put the abbreviation in brackets. Okay, so the significance. Why is this focus important? How will students, educators, curriculum designers, policymakers benefit from this research? So here we have a little part of the abstract. Like many other methodological innovations, task-based language teaching, or TBLT, has been applied to many English language curriculums across Asia. So we know that across Asia it's very common. That's why it's significant. This is a common methodology, and we want to examine teachers' beliefs about this methodology. Okay, so it's a qualitative paper. So we know it's significant because it's widely used in Asia. Next, the problem or the gap. Why was this research done? What was the gap in the literature? What problem needed to be addressed? So what did you find from your literature review? Little research has been done to explore what teachers know and believe about these reforms in their specific contexts. Okay, so we didn't find any research on teachers' beliefs and opinions about TBLT. So that's why we're writing this paper, or that's why the two authors are writing this paper. They want to find out, what teachers know and believe, about the methodology in their specific countries or classrooms, or in the same country but in different classrooms. So that's the gap, that's the problem, that's what we couldn't find out about, and that's why we're writing this paper. Methodology. What method was used to do the research? Quantitative, qualitative, or it could be action research. This paper derives from an in-depth study of teacher cognition in Vietnamese high schools. Okay, so high schools, not primary schools, using multi-methods of data collection. It will present and discuss findings from one of the methods used to elicit teachers' knowledge and attitudes. Narrative frames. Okay, so this is the method. They're choosing one method, and it's an established method. It's not something new. It's something that the researchers have found and want to specifically use. Specifically, teachers were asked to write in Vietnamese reflective comments about their attitudes towards TBLT and their recent experiences of applying it in their classrooms. So again, a qualitative paper teaches attitudes and comments in a reflective writing task. So we're going to analyze something qualitative, a writing task of the teachers in the field. Next, the results. What were the results of the research? What did you learn? The teachers' experiences from their own classroom context. So this is the thing we learnt from our narrative frames, the writing comments, the reflective reviews. We learnt about the teachers' experiences and in their own specific classroom contexts. Recommendations. What are the recommendations or benefits of these findings? A good abstract will answer all these questions for the reader. So here's an example. The findings will be analysed and the usefulness of this approach to data collection in relatable contexts considered. Okay, so that's something that may be useful for other teachers working in the field. Does this data collection, this approach work? And is it relatable to my context? So here's the whole abstract. You've got the title, Task-Based Language Teaching, TBLT, a Vietnamese case study. So it's only looking at Vietnam, using narrative frames, only using one method to elicit teachers' beliefs. The two writers here and their institutions and their countries. Abstract, always put the abstract there and have it all centered. So it should be centered and it should be bold. Okay, here it is. Like many other methodological innovations, task-based language teaching, or TBLT, has been applied to many English language curriculums across Asia. So context, Asia, English language curriculums. Little research has been done to explore what teachers know and believe about these reforms in their specific context. Okay, so this is the gap. This is the problem. Why are we doing this research? Because we want to find out teachers' beliefs about the reforms. This paper derives from an in-depth study of teacher cognition in Vietnamese high schools using multi-methods of data collection. Okay, so again, a bit about the method. It will present and discuss findings from one of the methods used to elicit teachers' knowledge and attitudes. Narrative frame, so this is the method we're choosing. Specifically, teachers were asked to write in Vietnamese, not in English, so it will be an analysis of Vietnamese reflections about their attitudes towards TBLT and their recent experience of applying it in their classroom. So again, see there's the abbreviation. You don't need to write it out because you wrote it out here and bracketed the abbreviation. So the next time you refer to it, it's just the abbreviation. And their recent experiences of applying it in their classroom. The findings will be analysed and the usefulness of this approach to data collection in relatable contexts considered. So is it useful for other contexts? Basically, the researchers will show you if it is useful and can it be transferred to other contexts in Vietnam or in another country with other students. So they want to show you how useful this method is of analysing teachers' feedback. So some language you might like to think about. You need to have a title for your research project. A background statement, provide the context of the research. Where is it happening? What is the cohort? Again, the geography of the target group, the age, the educational level, the socioeconomic status of your cohort. That's very important. You want to narrow everything down. It's like a funnel coming down to a very specific task, very broad, coming down to very specific, broad to specific. A review of the literature, identifying other research on similar areas. So you could say things like a review of the literature indicates that students in similar circumstances or some research has been inconsistent because, so that's the gap, there was no research in Vietnam or no research with high school students. To date, little or no research has focused on this particular group of students and their learning experiences. So to date, little or no, that's the gap. That's the gap you found in the research. Identifying the focus of the research, this project intends to investigate. So that's good language to use. I'm going to look at or investigate this gap, this lack in the research. Proposed methodology, a questionnaire targeting sample groups will be distributed and analysed. Okay, so what method are you going to use? Is it going to be a survey, a questionnaire, a reflective journal? What are you going to do to get your data? Results expected and recommendations. Based on the findings from the research program, it is anticipated that the researchers will be able to make recommendations, proposed benefits from this research. By better understanding the problems, teachers will be able to. So it's actually going to show you some ways to help practitioners in the field. So the research is useful. It has a useful outcome for teaching and learning. Okay, so I hope that's helped you with your abstract. Good luck, and be careful and be mindful of the abstract. It needs to be short, but include all of these parts. Okay, so thank you for listening.